Yo,
Going rough.
going on? How you doing?
Well, Tov, how are you?
Yeah, sorry for just being a little bit late. I got caught up with what I don't know. Anyways, it's a lot of challenges out here. You know what I'm saying? And not everybody's happy about what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? And whatever. It is what it is. How's everything by you?
Well, Tov?
Yep. All right, so we're back in the path of the just. Uh, for anybody who's joining us, jumping in, and we've been on this journey for a minute. You remember? I mean, I know you know what chapter we left off at, but do you remember the subject matter, or where you at with it?
Um, man, I don't know if I remember the subject matter where exactly where we were. Cause it's been a while, huh?
Yeah. I know. I didn't know if you did like any the Khazar. Anyways, okay. So the thing is like this. So the safer path of the just is written by the Ramchal, who was a tremendous Kabbalist, tremendous sage, very famous person. Some people actually say it's an interesting point. So right now we're in the middle of the Omer, right? And so one of the big concepts of the Omer is Rabbi Akiva, right? You know, this is how we kind of understand it. Rabbi Akiva was one of the great Tanaim, humongous person, one of the great sages in the Mishnah. And so Rabbi Akiva, as his story goes, you know, started learning Torah late in age, like 40 years old, this types of thing. And and he started learning, right? Now, another thing that's interesting before I go connected to Ramchal and then we're going to the Sefer itself, but recently in Syria, there's a big controversy because I guess the Arabs there went and attacked the gravesite of Rabbi Chaim Vital. This is like, I guess this happened a few weeks ago. And I don't know exactly what they did to the gravesite, the whole thing, but it's a really big concept. Um, see if we could bring up an article on it just to kind of connect to it because it's a big deal. Now, the thing that's significant about it is it's a few points that's simple. Okay, Chaim Vital. Okay, okay, perfect. Okay, how we understand? Okay, all right, we'll do Jerusalem Post on that. All right, so, whoa. Okay, hold on. All right, so we know Rabbi Chaim Vital is. He's an Arizal student, and it's a very interesting component, right? So today is actually, I think it's Rabbi Chaim's yard site. I think is right now. I'm not sure 100%, but I want to read this article that just was published yesterday about his gravesite, right? Because you know Israel's now in Syria, and Rabbi Chaim Vital is, you know, someone that we. No, it's not that. Hold on, hold on. Okay, all right. See, okay. Alrighty, all right. Okay, so Rabbi Chaim Vital, you see this? You can see this, Otino?
I was on
Okay,
mute. Yeah, I can see it.
okay, cool. All right, so it says like this. It says the alliance of rabbis in Islamic countries urged Syria to protect Jewish heritage sites, causing Syrian president to act. Jewish leaders around the world expressed outrage this weekend after the tomb of Rav Chaim Vital, a major figure in Jewish history, a mystic or Kabbalist, was desecrated in Syria. The alliance of rabbis in Islamic State under their umbrella group representing rabbis from Jewish communities around Muslim majority countries condemned the vandalism in a statement released Saturday. As you can see, it says here, we are deeply shocked and saddened by the desecration of the tomb of Rabbi Chaim Vital this Thursday in Damascus. So this is very recent. We're deeply shocked and saddened by the desecration of the Rabbi Chaim Vital this Thursday in Damascus. The Jews have lived in Syria for thousands of years, and we are an integral part of its history. And we urgently call on the Syrian government to immediately secure the holy sites, synagogues, cemeteries, and allure to safety as well-being. He says in a post on Twitter, tagged by the now Syrian president, Ahmed al-Shira, he said this. Okay, so who's Rabbi Chaim Vital? You know, blah, 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 is he's one of the great Kabbalists. Rabbi Chaim Vital was a leading scholar in 16th century, and it was then the Ottoman Empire. He was born in Sfat in today's northern Israel. Like Chaim Vital, of the foremost discipline of Rabbi Isaac Luria and the founder of the modern Orthodox Jewish thought. Rabbi Vital played a crucial role in preserving transmission of the Torah's teaching after his death, compiling that his works profoundly shaped the Jewish spirituality, and his major teachings include the Etz Chaim, the Tree of Life, Sha'ar Gedulim, Get to Reincarnation, and continued to be the central text in the study of Kabbalah today. In this later years, Vital settled in Damascus, where he served as a religious leader and teacher until his death in the 1620, and he was buried in a Jewish cemetery, which for centuries has remained a site of reverence for Jews in the region. The desecration of the tomb is not seen only as an attack on an important Jewish site, but also as a part of a broader pattern of neglect and destruction of Jewish heritage across Syria, once home of the thriving Jewish community. The Syrian Jewish population has dwindled to close to none over the past decade due to persecution, conflict, and immigration. The lines of rabbis in Islamic countries warn that without the immediate intervention, more historical Jewish sites may suffer. Similar states that act of desecration is not just an offense against Jewish heritage alliance, but an affront to a broader principle of projecting religious and cultural diversity in the Middle East. Calls for Syrian government to act. The calls for Syrians government to act have so far gone unanswered. The Jewish leaders emphasized preserving the tomb of Rabbi Chaim Vital and other sites, not just a merely Jewish concern. It is the duty of all committees to safeguard cultural and religious history of the region. The tomb of Rabbi Chaim Vital is not only a part of Jewish history, but a piece of a shared cultural identity in the Middle East. All right, so that's the point of that. So I'm not exactly sure what they mean by desecration. I think they have a picture of it up here. I mean, so what does that mean? They desecrate? Does that mean they dug up his body? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to understand, like, what that thing means. Anyways, so it's a very interesting point on this, and actually, it's a very big connection. Hold on, we're gonna have a little bit of fun building into this. All right, this is all a build up to learning of the Ramchal. But hold on, we got one other thing that was important to. Okay. All right, hold on one second. Hey, we're moving around there. You know, we're the Torah that we're learning. We're current. You know what I mean? What's going on now? We're going to connect, but this is a big connection to what we're learning right now. I'm just saying that as a precursor. So I'm just building it up, but I'm gonna let another rabbi say, because I could say it too, but sometimes it's good to hear from other people. Can you see my screen? Is that you, Brandon? You're in this room too?
Yes, Shalom, Mishpaka.
Shalom. So you guys can see the screen?
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, hold on. This is Rabbi Gladson. He's one of my. I like him.
Agatin Chodesh. Today is Lamed Nisan, the final day of Nisan. It's Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Lamed Nisan is also the yard site, the Yom Tehilula of Reb Chaim Vital, the primary disciple of the Arizal. Rabbi Yechiel Michal Stern in the Sefer Gedolei HaDoros brings from Reb Chaim Vital and Shar HaGogulim that the reason why there's a minhag that if someone is having yard site in the upcoming week, they get called up for maftir and they read the Haftorah, the Shabbos before their yard site, is because the bracha in the Haftorah, one says, Tzur kol olamim tzadik b'chol hadoros, which is akin to tzedek hadin. One is being matzdik the din. One is declaring that they find that the din shamayim is righteous, and by doing so, one brings an aliyas neshama for their father or their relative who they have yard site for in the upcoming week. But there's an amazing teaching of Reb Chaim Vital that the Arizal himself said about himself, and he told Reb Chaim Vital, it's quoted in Shar HaGilgulim, Hakdam Lamed Vav, that is relevant to recent events. We know just a few days ago, the grave of Reb Chaim Vital was desecrated in Damascus in Syria. The Arizal says that the Arizal said about himself that he is the Gilgal of Rabbi Akiva, and the proof is, whenever he sees people being taken out to be executed, he faints. Why? Because he remembers the tsar that he suffered when Rabbi Akiva was killed. And therefore, the Arizal says that's the proof that he is a Gilgal of Rabbi Akiva. Isn't that interesting then, that if the Rebbe of Reb Chaim Vital was Rabbi Akiva, then Reb Chaim Vital is like Talmidei Rabbi Akiva. And then that means that Reb Chaim Vital passed away in the days of Sfira, as he's from the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva. As we know, the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva passed away during the days of Sfira. It's really astounding. And if Reb Chaim Vital, so to speak, if the kever was desecrated, it's, so to speak, making more acute the fate of the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva, especially during this time of the year. And it's reminding us what happened to the students of Rabbi Akiva this time of the year when the students of Rabbi Akiva passed away, and that's why we're observing Avelos. So it's a reminder to us that that's something that we still have to be attentive to and work on and be misakein. So the events that are happening in Syria and the desecration of Chaim Vital, student of the Ari, Rabbi Akiva, reminds us of what happened to the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva during this time of the year. Rabbi Chaim Vital passed away in the days of Sfira, and this kever is desecrated during the days of Sfira, and it's ma'orer, it's chayzer v'nior, the perennials of the students of Rabbi Akiva, and it's a reminder that we need to be masakein. Zechusa yagein aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Amen.
Okay, so what's the connection to it? So I mean, this is obviously like really interesting stuff, right? Because it's, this is like, again, because when we talk about the sages and the things that are going on, we can't just look to them as like great people, like Caesar or Augustus or Socrates or these type of things. And I'm not saying any of those people are great, but I'm saying the way that the society that we live in says these people are accomplished, right? But we have to understand that every Jewish soul is expressing an aspect of the heavens, of Shemayim, right? And every Jewish soul is expressing one of the influences, one of the halikim, one of the influences that came down from Shemayim, that came down from the heavens on Mount Sinai on the 6th of Sivan. Every one of us is expressing that, right? So when we hear about people being reincarnations or different people having connections, don't just learn them as people, learn them as vibrations. So the Arizal says he's a reincarnation of Rabbi Akiva, right? I didn't know that, by the way. So he says that, right? And so they're saying, wow, how interesting is that he says he's the Gegulim by Rabbi Akiva, and he has a son, Rabbi Chaim Vital, he has a student, Rabbi Chaim Vital, who died during the Omer, right? Because Rabbi Akiva's, all of his students died during the Omer. The Arizal came to only teach one student, right? Because you could maybe say, Dafka, that Rabbi Chaim Vital represents that. Now, this is the connection to our learning. So the sages teach, this I do know, well, prior to this conversation, is that the Ramchal The Arizal, okay, so the sages teach that that Rabbi Akiva started to learn Torah in his 40s, right? And so he starts to learn Torah in his 40s. He becomes one of the greatest scholars of all time. But those first 40 years of his life, he was an ignoramus. He didn't keep any Torah. He didn't do these things. So they said that the reincarnation of Rabbi Akiva was the Ramchal, who we're about to learn the Sefer right now, who died at 40. You understand? So he died at 40, maybe even like 38, but 40, I'm pretty sure he died at 40, right? So they said that he came back, Rabbi Akiva came back as a reincarnation of the Ramchal, right? He came back as a reincarnation to correct those first 40 years of his life that he didn't keep the Torah, and through that lifetime, that first 40 years, he produced he produced the Sefer and other Sepharim, but the Sefer we wrote right now, right? So we're going into the Ramchal with this perspective that we're literally reading the same soul of Rabbi Akiva, and we're reading the frame of the soul of Rabbi Akiva, who was reincarnated to come back to correct those first 40 years of his life when he did not keep the Torah, right? Okay. So that was a connection, the whole thing. And also today, as he's saying, is the yard site. We're in the frame of the yard site of Rabbi Chaim Vital as well. So maybe later on this evening we'll learn a little bit of his sefer. But we're in the same shita, right? Because it's his teacher, the Ari, whatever. All right, so we're all there. Anyway, so that desecration thing is very disturbing, but we're getting close to redemption. All right. Okay, so we're in Mitzalat Yesharim. So the things like this, we're in chapter 14. And so at this stage of the story, the big conversation is like this. The big conversation is that this particular sefer, as Otilo knows, we're at chapter 14, so imagine how much time we spent on it. And we took a time away because we got into the holidays and preparing for the holidays. But now we're back because this month is all about character development, right? This whole time right now, this whole month of ER, if you can improve on your midot, you are creating the vessel to receive the completion of the light that you received on Pesach. You receive the full completion manifest during Sivan. We had a free ride, right? We get a free injection of free light of energy on Pesach. Now we go through a process that to understand the particular energy that we got, right? So during this time period, we go through a time period where we have to earn that light. And so this particular month of ER they say is the month of healing. But yes, it is the month of healing. But what does it mean, healing? Right? Because we know that the soul, the body, the light, the whole thing, the 248, 365, the whole thing. So now we're seeing that in this month, there's such a powerful level of light that's being revealed in the world that it's such a powerful light to be revealed in the world that if we have a vessel to receive that light, we're going to be receiving the same energy that our ancestors received thousands of years ago, right? Because we're trying to correct our relationship with Hashem. So how did they do it back then, right? Because they didn't have Rabbi Mordechai. I mean, maybe I was there, but not like this. Same thing about you guys. They didn't have, Mitzalat Yesharim. They didn't have Chafetz Time. They didn't have all these things, right? So what did they do? How did they correct themselves during that time? They corrected themselves through the man. Being in the desert and having to rely on Hashem to bring you bread or to bring you man. Bread from Shemaim, right? Every day. And based off of your level of Amunah, determines so many factors. How close the man was to your house, You know, they said some people, they were at such a level that they just had to extend their hand out of their house and they would collect it. They didn't even have to go outside. Some people had to walk, you know, a little bit further distance away. It all depended on what level we were holding at, right? So that's how they corrected themselves then. I think that would be pretty corrective, right? Having to rely on some substance to provide this entity called God that you really didn't acknowledge just prior to this. Now you have to rely on this entity you didn't rely on prior because you relied on Egyptians, right? That's why they wanted the fish back, these things. So, anyways, so that's how they corrected themselves then. So now by us, by us, by us, um, by us, you know, we're in the same process, right? We're in the same process where we are correcting ourselves, and we do. It's not the man as explicit, right? But we're also not standing in front of God as explicitly as they did either. So we are at a lower madrega, obviously, but that lower madrega, that lower level, is connected to us receiving the same quantity of light that our ancestors received, but just at a different level, right? And so now this is the month to learn as much Musar as you can, right? As much Musar as you can, the more corrective development, you literally are creating a vessel to receive this ultimate download that you received on Pesach, right? So that's the process. Okay, so with all that being said, I think we have a context of why we're learning what's going on in the cosmos, which is very important to me, you know, to understand how all these things are connected. And it's not just learning, reading books, it's actually drawing down a specific light that exists right now in the universe. And this is like the last day of miracles, right? This is the last, I mean, no, God forbid I say such a thing. This is the last day of the open revealment of miracles that exist in Nisan, right? So now we're transitioning into a new era, right? And this new era is the kind of like the body, right? The head would be Nisan, the legs and the feet would be Sivan, but the body is ER, right? Because this is the connectivity. And in fact, they say that some people hold that the letter for this month is the letter Vav. Why they say the letter Vav? Because the letter Vav connects, right? And this connects the Pesach and it connects Matan Torah this month, right? So this is a time of pure elevation. All right, so that being said, now that we understand what we're getting out of the learning, let's go into what the learning actually is. So the learning, as it exactly is Ramchal, and unfortunately, you know, jumping in, I mean, there's a lot to it, right? But the main concept of this sefer is the fact that the Ramchal says that there's so many tremendous attributes that we need in order to be successful that we're not necessarily born with, like certain character traits, certain behavior patterns. He said, but we can gain those things. We just have to work hard. We have to learn about them. So one of the concepts that we're at this stage is the difference between a Sadiq and a Chassid. A Sadiq is a person who does all the mitzvahs and does everything right, keeps everything, and lives a pretty regular life, right? But they keep the Torah. You know, the guys, you know, they have the like, more smaller kippahs, these types of things, right? So that's one thing. Then there's a Chassid. A Chassid is a person who also keeps, but they're much more in the frame of going the extra mile, right? Doing extra stuff, right? And one of the extra things that they do is separating themselves from things that could lead to negativity, right? Like they won't go places that, not that the place is bad, but the place itself could lead them down a path to a place where they can have problems. As with a person that's a Sadiq, just kind of like comes and like, says, hey, this place, has its issues, but hey, I'm keeping the Torah, blah, 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 all will be good. The chesed doesn't make any distinction. So the main attribute of the chesed is separation, right? Knowing how to separate themselves from things to be able to create a vessel to receive a tremendous amount of light. So that's what we're going to, that's what we're learning about now. So this is what we're in chapter 14. in chapter 14, as you can see, is starting with this concept of separations. So it says, Bechalache, ha-perishut, mechalache, ha-perishut, ha-rishonim, shelosha. Okay. He says, Ki hine yeisha perishut maha bechavot. So he says there are three principal divisions of separation. There is separation related to the pleasure, separation related to the laws, and separation related to conduct. Okay, so let's understand what that means. It says parishut bechanavot. So he said this. He said the separation relates to pleasure. To the pleasure is what we've discussed in previous chapters, namely, not to take from the world except what is necessary, which is necessary, which is what necessarily forces. This encompasses all that is pleasurable to anyone of that sense, whether it be through food, conjugal relationships, clothing, strolling, listening, or in all other similarities in similar matters, to partake only with them at days where their enjoyment is a mitzvah. Okay, so that's kind of like, it's a whole thing in itself, right? Because he talked about conjugal stuff, all the same. But the thing is like this. When you look at the ninth of Av, right? When you look at the ninth of Av, which, starts this process of 3 weeks, starts during the 17th of Tammuz, and it goes for 3 weeks, and then the culminations of the ninth of Av. But when you look at the halachot of not, say, listening to music, not eating meat, not, having wine for this period of time, this type of thing, all the way to the day of, where people don't even take showers, these types of things, they wash their hands differently. If you look at the halachot for that time period, you will see that the big focus there is the idea of staying away at that moment for pleasure, just for the sake of pleasure, right? Now, that is the ultimate expression of that during a time of concealment, during a time of massive light, right? Which is during the time of Av, right? The month of Av, the Father, the Son, the whole thing, right? So he's saying by here, not to that degree, but a person should not live a life that is just all about pleasure. We all suffer from it. I'm one of these pleasure people myself, so it's a very big dynamic to accept. I think most Americans in general, we have a lot of natural luxury we don't even realize, compared to the rest of the world. So he's speaking about that, and so he's saying now he's going a step further, right? Now, ask Otieno, do you remember that part in the studying we did before, what he just talked about?
Yeah, I do. About separation.
Yeah, about separation. Okay, cool. So he says, "Ha perishut badinim hu lehachamir bahem tamid." He said the separation in the laws is to always be stringent in them, to be concerned even for the view of the solitary opinion if its reason has grounds. Despite that the halakha does not follow this opinion, the condition, however, it is that it is stringent, but not the condition, however, is that his stringency not to become a leniency. Okay, let me read more. I want to give a point, but I just want to see what he says on this. Well, I'll make a point on this. So we have this idea of stringency, which is called a chumrah, right? So a chumrah is like a stringency that someone puts on a particular law. Not that it doesn't change the law, but it's just a way, like, for example, like it's not the best example, but it is an example. So a lot of athletes have like pre-game techniques, right? They have a pre-game technique. They do this. I think LeBron James has this famous one where he has the powder, and and he throws the powder in the air, whatever, this type of thing. And so you have these types of things, right? So his job is to play the game and to play it well, and 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 that's his job, right? That's what he gets paid for. Now he has his pregame ritual and different things that he does that gives him more energy, or more. It's more of a custom, a minhag that he does to for him gives a certain level of kedusha, right? So by that would be, he doesn't have to do those things in order to play the game. He doesn't have to do those things to follow the laws of the game, right? Or to follow his NBA contract. But he does these things because they give him more of a connection to the process, right? So it says, "Ule ha-chamir, be'sifke kot afilu be'makom she'na afar, lehakila behem." So he says, likewise, to be stringent in cases of doubt, even in situation where one may be lenient. Our sages of blessed memory explain the statement of Ezekiel. It's not Ezekiel. Was it? Bro, it's like I just, it's so hard switching my brain back from Hebrew to English now. Like, it's just the whole thing. But it says in Chulin, behold, my soul never became tameh, right? Spiritually unclear. And it says, and for I have never ate flesh of an animal which a sage called to rule on, or did not ever, I never ate flesh of an animal about which one says slaughter it urgently. Behold, all of these things are certainly permitted according to halakha, but he was stringent on himself and abstained. So Chief Rabbi Pinchas has a lot of stringencies, right? I don't know how he does everything now that he's traveling more, but I will say when he was in Israel, I know that he would only eat meat that was slaughtered by a shochet, a person who does the slaughtering of the meat, that he had to know the arizal on it, the blades had to be a certain way, like very, very specific things. And everyone has stringencies in different ways. But he's saying that stringency for this aspect of acquiring these attributes or becoming a chassid, these are connected. Uke kaver zikarati lema'al she'ena lelomada mima shehutar al kol Israel. I already explained earlier that what is permitted to the common masses cannot apply to those who practice separations. He says, for it is incumbent for them to distance themselves from what is repulsive, or the like, and the like of the like. As Mar Yukba said, in this manner, I am as vinegar derived from the wine compared with my father. Okay, I heard this before. He says, for if my father were to eat flesh now, he would not eat cheese until this. I think we read this already, by the way. He says, yeah, I did not eat cheese. I think we're in chapter 15. But it's good because we haven't learned in a while. We could go back. He says, now we would not eat cheese until this very hour, until the next day. So he's talking about stringency. So he's saying his father did this way. Where I eat cheese in the same meal, but I do not eat it in my next meal. Interesting. There is no question the halakha was not like his father did, or if it were, Mar Akba would have not acted against this. Rather, his father's was a stringent in this due to his separation. Therefore, Mar Yukba would call himself vinegar derived from wine, for he did not measure up in separation as much as his father. So he's giving an example of like stringencies, right? The Kabbalist, as as we just heard about Rabbi Chaim Vital, these different people, they are very, very stringent. Compared to the average Jew that keeps Shabbat and whatever, I would be very stringent in certain ways too, right? But I don't even see them as stringencies anymore. That's why I got to really figure out, like what part am I actually stringent on? Certain places I'll only pray at, there's certain people's houses I try only to eat at. People that, you know what I mean. I would never, intentionally eat at someone's house that wasn't, So it says ha parishut be mini hagim hu hidbo dadud hidbadud ve haka ve del min hachara. Okay, so he says the separation in conduct consists of secluding and separating oneself from society company in order to turn one's heart and devotion, divine service, and to proper reflect in it. This is on condition that one does not turn in this to the opposite extreme. For our sages, a blessed memory already said, a person's mind should always associate with others. Likewise, it says, what is the meaning of the verse? The sword is upon the boasters, and they shall become foolish. It says in Yirmiyahu. He says, a sword is upon the enemies of discipline of the wise, and sits separately, and study Torah. What is more, they become stupid. It says in Makot, rather one should associate with the good for whatever time he needs for his Torah study or his livelihood, then seclude himself afterwards and cling to God and to obtain the ways of the just and the true service. So this is very important. I don't know if we actually read this. If we did, I don't remember this clear, but this is very important, right? Because we live in a society that says, hey, the more friends and the people you chill with and your Super Bowl crew or your Sunday football crew or your NBA Finals crew, that's what it's about. Here, Ramchal is saying something different. He says, yeah, associate with people. You shouldn't just be alone. He says you should interact just to be healthy and to connect with other people. But other than that, you should seclude yourself and spend most of your time in learning. Uvi Sorry. Hasimcha. It's not simcha, but hasimcha. I just saw the words and I just saw Mashiach. Habsika beitala. So he says, include in this type of separation is to minimize one's conversation and to guard from idle talk and not gaze outside one's 4 cubits and the like. Of the noble thing is a man can habituate himself in until they become as a second nature within him. Vehine sheloshe ha'chalakim ha'ele afal pi she ha'maratim lecham be'chalalim ketsirim. So he says, even though I have told you over these 3 divisions in short general principles, you can nevertheless observe what they encompass many activities of human beings. And I've already mentioned to you the last chapter that it is impossible to set forth the details of their application because personal judgment is required to apply them properly according to the justness and truth of the general principles. Okay, so let's just go over this really quick because I just don't want to just fly past because these are very big points. All right, so first of all, is there any points? Otino, you have any points? Brandon, Mr. Yosef, do you have any points on this?
One very quick one. I can make about the stringencies. I was reading the Mirror Hasef and talking about Daniel and his companions when they were in captivity, and their stringency of how they kept kashrut, why they ate the vegetables and water, and because they stayed in that stringency, the kedusha they received was that allowed them to, for Daniel to be saved in the lion's den, for them to be in a position to receive the clarity from Hashem to perform, not I don't want to say miracles, but they kind of were miracles in a sense, but by their stringency that allowed that pathway to happen. So I just want to say that.
Mm-mm. So it's a very important point what you're saying, because the concept of stringency represents the concept of restriction, right? So we hear stringency, right? You're like being like strict or straining something, but really what we're saying is greater restriction. The greater the restriction, the greater the light, right? The greater the restriction, the greater the light. And so that dynamic of greater the restriction, greater the light is extremely important, right? Because this is what this whole game is about. When we pick up a something, when we pick up when we pick up some chips, right? And we say shakol nie bivro, we say beret priyadama, right? Whatever, however the chips are, we say it before we eat. What's going on? We're blessing God. We're blessing God. God needs our blessing. God does not need our blessing, right? And so that that concept of that concept of that concept of that pause, that stopping, because the body wants, right? The body's thirsty, the body's hungry. The body consciousness, right? So when we take that moment and we stop, we literally change the universe. We can't imagine. It's not the bracha. It is the bracha. The bracha is very nice. The bracha is very nice. It's very holy. But the basis of the bracha is the pause. The pause is related to the restriction. The restriction is going against the animal desire, and the animal desire going against that desire to receive, and saying that, hey, that desire to receive, I'm going to restrict that desire to receive, and I'm going to connect to the desire of sharing. That's why we're talking to the Creator. We say the bracha to talk to Hashem when our body consciousness says the opposite. Forget about God. You're hungry, you're thirsty. And so that restriction is that. When we have our wife, and our wife is not in a place of purity, we can't do anything about it, right? We can't do anything about it. And so that thing that we can't do anything about, right? That thing that we can't do anything about, that desire that we have, sexual desire, physical desire, we want it. Oh my God, I need it, I need it, I need it. But we say, no, because Hashem says it's not permitted to me. You just brought so much light to your home. When you don't look at your wife undressing when she's in need of, you don't even put yourself in a position to even think about it. It's like, you just restricted so much. You know how many men have destroyed their lives chasing women, chasing sex, having no restriction? How many diseases have been created in the world because of improper sex? And then the Shem says, no, you have to wait. You have to do it this way. When we build the sukkah, okay, God says we got to dwell outside. You know, we got to be in this place outside, the whole thing. Okay, I get it. I get it. I get it. Right? I get it. Build something, build a tent. No, it has to be built a specific way. The schach on the top, the walls, the board, the whole thing. No matter all these things. Why can't I just build a house? I'm dwelling outside. I'm doing the mitzvah Hashem. I'm doing the mitzvah. I'm dwelling outside for 8 days. Why can't I just make it the way I want? Why can't I just build a tent? Why I got to do it this way? Because the instructions that we follow are the restriction that allows us to receive the Kedusha. Right after Yom Kippur, what do? We start building. Why are we building? We're building because We're building because we're receiving light on a physical level. So this whole concept of separation and these things, right? So I want to go back to it, and I just want to review a little bit. And then I guess it's a relatively short chapter, whatever, but I don't want to do 2 chapters in one day. But anyways, I do want to review a little bit because this is like big stuff because we could apply all these things right now. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like we gotta wait for this magical moment to show, how dedicated we are to God, right? All right. So any points? Anybody want to say anything before we go on? All right.
Yeah, Ross, I was gonna say one thing,
Please.
kind of thinking about it, like so the stringency, the restriction is Gevurah, and the Gevurah is the manifestation of the light. That's what the stringency allows. I think can't remember where I read it at, but somewhere in the Sage's commentaries where it's like the male seed is Chakma, but
Mm,
the woman's egg is Bina. So the male seed Chakma is potential, but the Bina allows the manifestation of the potential to come to reality. So I'm kind of connecting that stringency, that Gevurah, that discipline, that focus. It takes that. It's like you have a water source, and it's like okay, it's flowing, it's flowing, it's flowing. But then when you direct it, now you can access the energy of the water. So the stringencies that we use, the restrictions, allows the manifestation, which you was bringing out. It brings the manifestation of the light, of the blessing to matriculate down from Hakodos. Just want to say that.
exactly. No, beautiful, beautiful. I mean, that's the point. The point is saying that in order, we're here to correct our souls, right? The body consciousness is something we're supposed to overcome. We're not supposed to be subservient to it, right? We're supposed to overcome it, right? And so this concept of overcoming body consciousness, right, and limited consciousness intellectually, this is what we have to overcome. We have to overcome that dynamic. So the first point he brings out in his concept is the separation of pleasure. What does that mean? Okay, you're not supposed to have pleasure, God forbid, for sure. But the point is, you're not supposed to live for pleasure. And sometimes to make sure that we're not living for pleasure, we put pleasure aside. Like, for example, one of the things I personally do, very rarely will you catch me during the week having a big meal. The only time you will catch me having a big meal during the week is if it's connected to a Suda mitzvah. Meaning I go to, it's Rosh Chodesh, right? So Rosh Chodesh, we're about to wow out, right? We got to get it out of our system. So you have Rosh Chodesh, right? So then I'll eat like a big meal, big steak, this type of thing. Or say like or say yeah, I think the big thing is having a meal, big meals. I mean, some people have big dinners all the time. It's not, I mean, not a big dinner. For me, it's like even a full dinner and not saying kiddush and hamotzi in the frame of Shabbat. It's like weird for me. You know what I mean? It's like I'll do it, but it's weird. You know what I'm saying? And so, anyways, Bekitzer, the point is just saying that this idea of separation from pleasure, meaning that I don't have to have all these luxuries to be receiving light. Because if I'm receiving light, those it's like a guy. It's a funny story. Not a funny story. It's Cat Williams, right? He made a joke, right? He was this long time old Cat Williams. He said he was talking about marijuana, right? And he was saying like, it doesn't matter what your situation is. You come home, all the lights are out. You ain't paid the light bill. And he said, and all you got is your cell phone, right? He said, man, he said, as soon as you roll that joint and you smoke it, he said, man, it don't matter no more. You turn on that music, the lights are off. You didn't. Now, I'm using that as an extreme example. People who don't have the kedusha, they need those external stimulants, right? Coffee, alcohol, marijuana. He said, which is fine. I'm not criticizing anything. It's just saying that if that is your connection to pleasure, that can make a person perceive he doesn't need the light of the creator. Right? They just think they need their drugs, whatever their fix, whatever their thing is. They got that and they're good. They got their routine. Even the routine could be a form of pleasure. right? I got this at this time, this at this time, this whole thing, right? So that's what this concept is, right? So the separation of pleasure is that concept. It's saying like, hey, you know what? Do I really need this? Am I using this as a coping mechanism? Am I using this as a way to not confront reality? Am I doing this as a way to go into escapism, right? And that's what pleasure is for us, right? Very rarely do you see people go on vacation and say, hey, I need to rest and have this experience of separation and pleasure so I could come back and serve God even greater. And that's the point. And that's what he's saying here. He's saying all these things, if they're not connected, like he says right here, he says, this encompasses all that is pleasurable to any one of the senses, whether it be through food, conjugal relations, clothing, strolling, listening, or in other similar matters, to partake in them only in days where their enjoyment is a mitzvah. So, like, for example, sexual intimacy on Shabbat is the highest level. Some people, I'm not going to say their names because I don't put them out, but the Kabbalists that I've learned from, they are only intimate on Shabbat. They're only intimate on Shabbat. Why? Because it guarantees. Now, I'm not saying anyone else should do that. It's a level, and your wife may not be holding there either. You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, there are people who only have intimacy on Shabbat because they want to bring Siddiqim in, and it's the highest souls are available for conception during that times, right? So that's those things. Clothing, this, okay, like we are taught, especially in Black culture, clothing and all these different things are very like, you want to wear the king's clothes, the fine clothes. But you know what? I used to believe in that. I used to work I even worked in fashion, right? In LA Fashion Week and, all those things, those are like, those things were like huge things for me. Those are red carpets, all those types of things, outfits, this, look, this, the whole thing. And then I come to Israel, and no one's holding that way. And in fact, in Israel, the thing that's interesting about Israel, specifically like Jerusalem, especially with Americans, if you're dressing too fancy, they're like, what's wrong with you? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people look at my clothes, they're like, oh man, you fell off, man. Look how you used to dress back then. Look how you dress now. It's like, bro, real fashion is dressing like where you're at in life, not the trend. Fashion is an expression of where you're at in life. And right now, I'm a guy who's living in an old apartment, learning Torah, 8 to 12 hours a day, every single day. Most people will go crazy, I think, if looking back on it, like, how did I even do that? You know what I'm saying? I'm still doing it. I mean, I'm giving 4 or 5 classes. I mean, it's not, but realistically, 2 to 3 classes a day, right? Every day, right? Three storm a day, and on top of that, different continents and different subject matters. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still in it. I never left yeshiva. I just have my own yeshiva now, right? It's called Yeshiva Sanhedrin, right? And so that's where we're at, right? But the point is saying that concept of clothes and fashion don't mean anything when you're filling yourself off the light of God. You know what I'm saying? Like, I walk into a room, I got the oldest suit in here, bro. I got Jerusalem dust on my shoes. I got Jerusalem dust. What? What do you want? I'm the dude. I got it. Why? Because I'm filled with God's light. I don't need their brand. I'm good. I am good. Like your boy Dion said. Your boy Dion, when he first came to Colorado, he says, hey, I'm coming with my own luggage. And it's all Louis. You know what I'm saying? So I'm coming in, I'm Louis. I don't need Louis Vuitton. You know what I'm saying? I'm Chanel. I'm Gucci. You know what I'm saying? I don't need anything that they got. My light of my soul is shining, bro, greater than any level of fashion could ever give. Not even a tenth of a speck in their fashion. So we're saying that when you're fused with light, you are popping. There's nothing the secular world can provide for you. So the second point that he focuses on, the separation of laws. Separations in the laws. Now, let's personalize this. I've said this before, and I've said this before to all of my students, right? Because the thing is, I have people who learn with us, and then I have students, right? I have students. Now, the students that I have are people that are actually, I build a Seder for them, right? So they have a learning model that's based off of their personality and what I've got to learn about them, right? And I use Otinel and a few other people. For example, some of the other people I learn with don't like being online. You know, they're professionals. They don't want everyone knowing that they're Jewish, like, whatever. But the point is like this. I've used Otinel as an example. He's very much influenced by Kabbalah, as you can hear in his rhetoric. So the thing is, to ignite that natural aspect of Sod, I didn't go and start teaching Rav Ashлаг's Introduction to Kabbalah. Why not? Because he already has that grasp. I want him to control those angels. I don't want him just to know that the angels exist. I don't want him to just know that this is what the cosmic alignment is. He has the right and the power to control those angels, to control the cosmos, to be able to ignite his power. So once you understand that the Kabbalah and these worlds existed, so now you gotta do the refinement, right? And the refinement is the secret. Because once a man is able to control himself and his desires and he expresses himself, then the Kabbalah is just teaching you how to do you. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about this idea of being a student by the yeshiva, okay, fine. People, the shirs are open to everybody. But the thing is, Otinel has been learning Ramchal for, several months. He's been learning Hayashar. These are like sacred texts in Judaism. You know what I'm saying? These are humongous sacred, along with a bunch of other things. But I'm just saying these things are important. So now he's refining those things. He's learning about this thing. The fear of God, not that he didn't have, but the fear of God on a different level is going in. And so now that vessel, that body that allows him to go and understand the Zohar at a different level, the things that's been compelled, he's making connections now. That what he just said didn't come from me. It came from his own studies. But he's bringing it out through the Ramchal. So when we talk about this idea of the stringency in the laws, the stringencies in the laws have to do with this idea of being able to personalize the halakha, to put your swag on your halakha, right? Now you can learn from other people's swag, because that's what a chumrah is. It's just a swag. I'm doing it this way because this gets me into this. Like some people, before they read the Birkat Hamazon, they read certain Psalms, other brachot, right? You don't have to do that, do Birkat Hamazon, but they do it because they want that extra connection. Some people choose to say other things. Sometimes when I say Hamotzi, right? I say Podea ed yadecha, must be elechokai, right? So now that's also it's an extra thing, right? But a lot of people do it. A lot of Sephardim do it. Basically, what it means is that whatever God puts into my hands is holy. It's God's will, and I need to be excited about that and be thankful of that. And you're training your mind with that, right? But I even add extra things. I'll say Vayomer Elohim ve'ahior when I'm holding the chamotzi. And people sometimes when I'm at my table or someone asks me to do the bracha, they look at me like, why are you saying that? Because for me, the chamotzi or hamotzi represents this idea of the hamotzi, the bread itself represents this expression of God's light. I'm going back to the hamotzi that was during the time where all the trees were growing bread, before bread became something. So I take my mind all the way back there. That's what I'm doing for me. So you guys have to you have to learn the halacha, learn the reasoning behind the halacha, and then when the things that you need to get you going, you gotta do it. For me, in the morning, I like to wake up, do netilat yadayim. I don't say a bracha. I just wash my hands, and I go in the bathroom, release, and then I take a shower. Then I come out and do my morning brachot. That's my stringency, right? So everybody has to be able to put their thing or learn other. You don't have to do it. But Ramchal is saying this is part of the concept of separation. He's trying to give us the spiritual technology to acquire the ability to become a chassid, greater than being a tzaddik. right? A tzaddik is the guy, your local Orthodox rabbi. He's a righteous guy, you know, he keeps the Torah, blah, blah, blah. A chassid is Rabbi Pinchas, Chief Rabbi Pinchas. He's a mikubal, right? He talks to angels. He talks to angels. Okay, like he's really that guy. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, and you know, I came from the Rav and all other types of people. I'm in Israel. I know other mikubalim. He's really that guy. He's really that Rav, right? He talks to angels. I'm not claiming that right now. I'm building to these levels, right? Because I'm real, right? And Rabbi Pinchas wouldn't even have a person around him who's fake. I'm growing to that because once I'm plugged in, I'm a mikubal. I am not a mikubal right now. I am a tzaddik. I'm a chassid. I'm a person who's building into a chassid. This last, I'll say, couple years, 2.5 years, I really have been going in that frame of becoming a Kabbalist, not someone who studied Kabbalah, but being a Kabbalist, which is a whole work and it's a whole concept. Right now, I'm just working on being a judge, a dayan, which I am. Right? But that requires me to understand halakha. And bro, I'm answering questions right now for the Jews in Nigeria, bro. They're sending me texts. What do we do here? What do we do that? How do we count this? How do we do that? And I'm like, oh man, bro, now I'm responsible for all these people. People don't realize it's one thing to be knowledgeable and a charismatic speaker and a great teacher, which I give my credit, and I give my credit to my mom. My mom is such an amazing teacher. I inherited that. My grandmother was an amazing teacher. My great-grandmother was an amazing teacher. My dad is a great businessman, right? But teaching wasn't his profession per se, you know what I'm saying? But the point is to say that, but this evolution of being a posek and being able to answer halakhic questions, it's a massive responsibility and you're scared. What if I'm saying the wrong thing? You don't think that goes through my head? What if I read it the wrong way? I'm liable for that, bro. You know what type of fear that is? Your bones are shaking. These people ask me questions. I'm like, bro, call Rabbi Pinchas. What are you calling me for? I give lectures. I teach. I'll hold your hand. I will take you from zero to greatness. But now you want me to poskin for your life? But this is where Hashem has pushed it. Right? And I got Rabbi Pinchas there, you know, and thank God, right? And other people there. But the point is just saying, this is the concept. So you have to make the halakha, you have to bring the halakha into, you know, your life. You know? You got to make it into your life. So in this last part, and we'll end it here, is separation in terms of environment. If people are not elevating your situation, please do not chill with them. If they're family members or people who you love, spend time to share. But other than that, don't waste your time. You know, I spend a lot of time in this apartment, which is really my office, where I'm talking to you from now, right? It's really my office. But I spend most of my time here. I'm teaching, I'm on the phone, I'm dealing with issues around the world, I'm dealing with, I got students, all types of things. And then I'll leave here either to go back to my other place, right? Or I go to get something to eat. But I'm not trying to chill with fools, bro. People call me, hey, let's chill. No, I chill maybe Thursday night, right? And Shabbos. Other than that, I'm not trying to chill, bro, because I need that edge. You know what I'm saying? When I came here to Israel, bro, you understand, like, it was just such an edge, you know, like that I didn't have in LA. I remember the first time I was here in Israel for a couple months, and I had to come back to LA to deal with business and some stuff. I had to, like, some loose things, whatever. I just remember coming back there and being like, bro, everybody here is asleep, bro. Like, I'm walking through the old city of Jerusalem. I got my head on the swivel because I could get shot. You know what I'm saying? On some holiness, not on some like gang beef. Like, fools are like, no, Allahu Akbar, you dead. You know what I'm saying? So when I came here, it was like, this was life. I'm living. I'm a Jew, bro. I came to Mir Sharim. I was living. But I had this the first place, bro, I'm telling you, the second, I think third place I lived in was so ghetto, you have no idea. The room that I had, okay, the last place I lived before I got married, I lived in this apartment with two other guys, very big scholars, humongous scholars, by the way. three other guys actually. All of them Israeli. Okay, all I had to like, I had to pick up my Hebrew just to live with the guys. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, where we lived at was the old house of the chief Yemenite rabbi. This was his house that I was living in, sleeping in his room. How do I know this? Because the landlord, whose family has owned this place for hundreds of years, told me. He said this place was the chief rabbi's because across from where I lived at, like it was a courtyard, literally like I could throw like maybe like 6 steps, maybe 10 steps from my leaving where I was living. 10 steps away is the oldest Yemenite yeshiva in all of Jerusalem, right? So at least in that area, I don't want to say all of Jerusalem because I don't say something wrong, but I'm pretty sure all of Jerusalem because it's when that first Yemenite community was established there in that area, the religious community, and these are the people coming with the long pail, the whole thing, right? Wearing the shrouds, the whole thing. And it's there. I pray with them. I used to pray with the Yemenites, right? I used to pray with them all the time, and they would come out. They'll kiss my hand, right? They'll kiss my hand. They'll come in and be like, "You're so holy, you have no idea," right? They saw me as a convert. They're like, "You can't believe how holy you are to us." But I was sleeping on this like old bed, bro. I had my own place, bro. I had convertibles, Mercedes, AMG kits, the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm living LA, marble, marble sink things, whatever you want to call them, whatever, Egyptian cotton sheets, all this type of stuff. Bro, I'm in Israel living on a mat, bro, basically. Like a propped up mat with blankets, this. Bro, I gotta have a fan on me all night. Why? Because the whole place got mosquitoes in it, bro. And the mosquitoes are like waiting that it's like hundreds of them waiting to like take you out. So the only thing that would protect me was the fan. This is how I was living, bro, for years. And so I would wake up and make sure I didn't want to chill in my apartment. I would wake up and then go straight to shul and that. And then in the window we had in the front, bro, it was like an open window. There was no closing the window. That's how the mosquitoes would get in there, right? And everyone, it was normal for everybody. I'm telling you, if you had no idea where I lived at. So the point is saying that experience built me. It built my strength, right? And I never want to leave that. I mean, obviously things are much better now. Once you get married, you got to increase your lifestyle for your wife. But the point is saying that in general, that's where I was at. And that's where I'm still at in terms of my grind. So this idea of separation is that I remember one time, and I'll leave with this point on separation. I was, making new friends. I'm in this area that's kind of like, I'm not in the hardcore area as much. Area's a little bit more lenient, but everyone's pretty, meaning they're showing Shabbat. And I remember after Shabbat, I was just, hanging out with some people, being nice. They said, "Hey, come over, come and chill with us, blah, 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 People have been reading about me for years, you know what I mean? I've been like very secluded now, more open. I'm coming out, talking to people. So I was hanging out with these guys and they were playing video games after Shabbat. And I was like, "Oh, you want to play?" And I was like, "Bro, what do you want to play a video game for?" It was the thing. Like, I don't have the mind space for it. It's enough that I'm even here chilling, So anyways, eventually I played it, right? And whatever, some game, the whole point of the game was one of these weird games where the whole point is your whole thing was not getting killed. That was the whole point of the game. So you want to just keep walking, and as long as you can stay alive. I was like, what type of message is this game giving? I'm just sitting there thinking about. Anyway, the point is saying that I remember leaving, and I told the guys, like, bro, they was like, you could come back tomorrow. We could play more tomorrow, blah, blah. Because I had fun doing it. It's still a funny thing, like you're running, you're shooting, this whole thing. He says, you could come back, do it tomorrow. And I was like, bro, if I chill with you guys, it will ruin my edge. You guys are relaxing over here, bro. Like I'm focused on removing pain and suffering from humanity. I'm waking up on that. That's a real thing. Anyways, let's continue on. I'm gonna do another share in a few hours. Probably we're probably jumping back into Kabbalah. We're definitely going back into Kabbalah, Rabbi Ashlag, preparations for Zohar. So if you want to join on that, you're free to. Any last points, any concepts, anything you want to share?
Shalom. I was thinking when you was explaining the separation of Shabbat, and it's easy for us as individuals in a day-to-day to look at Shabbat like we work all week. Can't wait till Shabbat so that I can, get that rest and get that and receive the light of holiness. But then, as you were speaking about the separation and also the shift from receiving to giving to sharing, I started thinking as the mind shift of I can't wait to get to Shabbat so I can sanctify the Most High. And I find it just really interesting, like how through the text and through how you were explaining how that shift occurred.
Yeah, Brandon, you went out a little bit. Were you asking a question on that point, or what were you saying?
Oh, I was saying that it was I just find it that pretty amazing that about the shift in like far as the mindset of like using Shabbat as an example. As like you were saying that, a lot of times how a person might like be in mode of receiving and giving and sharing. And so, as you were speaking about the separation of Shabbat, I was thinking about how, in a day-to-day life, it's easy for us to kind of can't wait to get to Shabbat to kind of get that day of rest and to receive the light of Hashem. But then as I start, as I continue listening, and I kind of thought about the shift of like the shift in the mind frame of like the giving and receiving of the light, as of opposed to working throughout the week and anticipating Shabbat to kind of get that break from the rest of the week, to really like flip it around to like I can't wait to get to Shabbat to sanctify the Most High in His name.
Mm. I hear what you're saying. So yeah, that's very, 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 very important point. From the standpoint that what we're saying here is that, like, say for example, anything that you like say a person likes cheesecake, or a person likes grilled cheese sandwiches, or whatever their favorite thing is. Don't eat it during the week. Wait to eat it on Shabbos. If you have a certain type of a wine or a drink that you like, don't have it during the week. Restrict, separate, wait for Shabbos. And when you're eating it, and that pleasure and that enjoyment that you have on Shabbos, when you're eating the food, it literally, the enjoyment, the oneg, the enjoyment of Shabbos brings down the light of Shabbos. That light of rest comes down into your neshama through the enjoyment you experience. The enjoyment on Shabbat actually creates the vessel. That's why sex is such a big part. Have as much as you can on Shabbat with your wife, if it's appropriate time. Because all those sexual experiences, one, you can bring down a soul that could be the Mashiach, right? Or worst case scenario, humongous Talmid Chacham that is going to elevate your soul way past your time, right? Because your kids are going to be the ones that elevate you. That's why I got to have some kids. Oh, Tanel got to have some kids too. And so we got to have some babies out here, so these next generations that we could teach, and they could say Kaddish for us when we're buried in the ground. Right, and so the dynamic is saying that exactly, right. The point is to say that the things that give us the most enjoyment, use them at the right time, because we understand enjoyment and pleasure as a way to communicate with the Creator. We don't have pleasure just for the sake of pleasure. We have pleasure for the sake of connecting to the Creator. The non-Jews, the Goyim, they have pleasure just for the sake of pleasure. Why? Because their neshama, their soul, is only in the aspect of nefesh, which is the aspect of the soul that's only in the body, right? That's the difference between Otinel and guys that he knows. Is that his soul is a higher soul, so he's asking questions and has desires that they don't have. And he's looking at like, why do I have these desires? Why do I want to keep Pesach? Why do I want to do these things? Why do I want to learn? Why am I spending? He could go out, he could be buying, whatever he wants. He could be spending money on all types of things. Why am I investing into this? Because his soul needs it. That's all it is. So if that's the case, we can't live like the other nations. The other nations want pleasure all the time. If there's a certain ice cream you like, if you like pecan ice cream, save it for Shabbos and eat it. And now that you're eating, it is not just the eating. I'm telling you, the eating on Shabbos, as you guys know, it's a whole different eating, right? And so I'm so selfish for that light. If I could get that light on Wednesday, I'll do it. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if I could get that same light that I go to show, I would eat everything, but I can't. So I have a little, I sustain myself during the week, I eat, I still enjoy stuff, don't get me wrong. I still enjoy it, but not the enjoyment that other people have. It's enjoyment for me, things that I like, minimal. But the reality is that ultimate pleasures on Shabbos. All right, so we'll continue on. Otina, you got any last words for us?
I was thinking when you were saying your experience, you were living in Meretz Sharim. It's interesting how Kadosh Baruch Hu puts us in certain conditions that compels us to achieve that potential. Like you couldn't choose. Like look where you're at. You got mosquitoes everywhere. It's crazy, but it made you like get up. It made you stay active. It made you stay in that in our Saya world. You know what I mean? You had to keep moving. So I always find that so amazing how Hashem does that. Such a kindness He does for us. Like a lot of times we find that there's some quote unquote restrictions or being uncomfortable. It's like, why is this happening? No, it's actually exactly what you need. And I think Rob, we use this example often. Like you go to the gym, you want to get stronger, you put those weights on. That resistance is what makes you stronger. The dot that you have allows you to see the things that Hashem is doing for you. And the Amuna that you have allows you to see the things that Hashem is doing. It's all for your benefit. I think we talked about it last week's year, how the Zadikim would take advantage of their misfortune. Oh, because shame, I'm going to do this, go do it over. It's perfect. Exactly what I need. I might not understand it. I don't need to understand it. But I know it's exactly what Hashem is giving me to compel me to get to that next level. I saw something online. I haven't seen it in the source yet, but I think this person is pretty valid. But she was saying she was like King Solomon had a ring on his neck that he wore that said Gamze Yavor, which means this too will pass. And for us, in our vernacular and my community, obviously, this too will pass. It's like, hey, better days are coming. But from the explanation that she was given, it was more like, no, King Solomon is saying this world is transitory. The restrictions that you see before you, they're not even restrictions. They're helping you get into that next stage. All these things are transitory. Oh, I should be doing this. I should be making money. It doesn't even matter. It's going to pass away. The things that you're trying to build up are in Olam Haba. That's the real world. That's the real currency, if you want to say. So all the things that we experience in our life, these two things, they will pass because this isn't our final destination whatsoever. It's the world that we have to be in to accumulate that true currency. But these things will pass. We just have to stay on the right path. We just have to stay upright. That's all I want to say.
Beautiful, beautiful. You just remind me of one point I just want to share before we leave. So I think it was like 2018 or something like this, 2019, early 2019. I think it was before Corona. But the thing is, I had this friend of mine who I knew from LA. He lived actually up north, like in the Bay Area, but he would come down to Shabbat in LA. He's an African American guy. His mom is Ashkenaz, his dad was black, but like a black guy. His name is Yaakov, right? Andrew. He's a great guy. At the time, he was married to another girl. He got divorced, he's remarried, he has a kid now. But the thing is, I remember when he came with his ex-wife to visit, who was actually a whole big story around her, but he came here with his ex-wife and they came for a vacation, this, blah, blah. He was spending tons of money, bro, like all types of money. He's an architect, very successful guy. And he was trying to give me a bunch of money too. That back then I was like, dude, I don't want no money from nobody. I didn't understand that concept. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a business guy. What are you talking about? But he came and we were chilling. And so I took him. I was like embarrassed, kind of like to take him where I lived, because he knew me from LA. He knew me as a whole different guy. And I was like, who cares, man? I'm just gonna show him, right? Because I'm telling you, if you saw the place, I could probably find pictures. If you saw the place, you'd be like, damn, that's what. But in Meretz Chaim, it's holy because everyone there is a rabbi. One of the biggest rabbanim is living downstairs. People after Shabbat, there's a long line. There's no cameras there. No one has smartphones. Everyone has a kosher phone. It's it's a whole nother world. I can't even explain it. One day when you come here or you guys come here, I'll take you exactly everywhere, right? But anyway, so Andrew came and I took him into the place where I lived. And I was like, bro, this is my room right here. This is like the area. And he looked at me and he was like, and I saw his face and I was like, bro, this guy just fell off, man. This guy living ghetto. And we walked outside. He's like, bro, you are so lucky, man. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, bro, I wish I could just drop everything and just come here and just lay out, be here and just learn. Like, this is like, wow, man. I'm like so envious of you right now. I got to go to work in a couple weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're here right now, and you're just building and growing and you're completely in it. Like, who ever seen a place like this? I was like, I know. And it hit me at that moment, Like, I was like, wow, because I know I enjoyed it. It was meaningful to me. That's what I was doing. If it wasn't, I would have went back to LA. It was meaningful to me, but not everything I did in life was cool to other people. And so when he said that, it really just woke me up. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Because he's an executive guy too. He was an executive. He is an executive. I mean, the guy's making, mid six figures type guy, And he knew me as an executive, as a guy doing all types of interesting things in LA, So to be at that level and to be able to switch your life, and to be able to have that experience, he really awoken me to that, and it gave me a lot of appreciation. So, anyways, the point is, like Otieno was just saying, the struggles that we have in life are not struggles. Only the ego, only the Satan wants to make it a struggle. But in actuality, when you're on the path of Torah and truth, at whatever level that you're at, everything that Hashem provides to you is blessed. Baruch atah.